turn gently in the water.
So you're saying that if you have trouble and you have control over the helicopter, you can bring it down. But are you saying there might have been some kind of collision, a bird strike or something like that?
Could have been a whole bunch of things, and it could be just an internal failure of the aircraft itself. But a helicopter has the ability to have its engine go out and still be able to make a soft landing on water or on land. The fact that we've already got indications, not confirmed, of fatalities indicates to me that there was probably something that interdicted its ability to stay in the air.
And one person who was on board, we're told, has been rescued. So somebody managed to get out. I guess you can see part of it still above the water line. So, there may be an air pocket in there. There may be a way to get at people who might have survived going into the river.
Yeah, the bigger the helicopter, the more difficult that can be. So if this is one with 4 or 5 people in it, it probably was more on the line of a Bell Jet Ranger or something of that nature. That would not be too difficult to get people out. A larger helicopter, a heavier one, that would present a different problem.
And the Coast Guard is on the scene as well. So you've got divers, you've got people who are very good at doing whatever can be done at this moment to rescue people, if possible, inside that helicopter. One already rescued from the water seems to have made it out somehow. Once again, there's no word on what kind of helicopter this is. There are tourist helicopters, there are commuter helicopters, there's all kinds of helicopters in and around New York City. This happened really within the last hour, and you can see the response there. John, I hate to ask this, but what's the time frame for getting somebody out? Is there a rule around this?
If you've got somebody who's in the water, their head's above water, and they're treading water, then again, it's about 30 to 45 minutes before you hit a thing called the time of useful consciousness, the hypothermia element of just making you ineffective and continuing to keep yourself afloat. If you're in the water and unconscious, that has its own potential, of course, for drowning. It's just hard to say. If the airplane or if the helicopter came down fairly gently, and possibly that's what happened here for one person to survive, then it's a matter of plucking them out of the water after they've gotten out of the cabin. But I don't think they'd still be in the cabin very long.
Why not?
Yeah, well, you'd want to get out as fast as you can. If the pilot was still conscious and useful, he would be getting them out. And again, if it's a lighter helicopter, then it's not going to directly impede your ability to get doors open and pull people out. Not like a heavy copter, for instance, like a Huey, a UH-1, or something of that nature.
Got it. All right, John Nance, stand by. Thank you very much. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll have continuing coverage after this.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, Edinburgh, Scotland, from Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw. Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home? We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Raleigh, North Carolina, the U.S. Capitol, Mayfield, Kentucky,
Minneapolis,
Mexico, Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen, giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
The Amateur in IMAX.
I want to find and kill the people who murdered my wife. They're just a nerdy fellow likes to work on computers. But the CIA did nothing.
Take him off the board. Everyone has their breaking point.
Word on how many of those four might have died in this crash. Authorities are still on the scene. This is an active rescue operation. They are hoping to get to people who were on that helicopter, though authorities have said that this is a deadly crash. The helicopter going down just a short time ago. For those of you who know New York City, this is the Hudson River, and the crash was sort of in line with Pier 40, if you know Manhattan, though on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. I want to bring in Lauren Glassberg, a reporter for Channel 7 WABC here in New York. Lauren, what have you learned? And in addition to that, I know that you've had a chance to talk with some eyewitnesses. What did they see? I'm not hearing Lauren. We'll go to Aaron Katersky, our chief investigative correspondent. Aaron, can you hear me?
I can hear you, David. I'm right across from the crash site. The helicopter went down closer to the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. It was carrying at least 4 people, according to the New York City Fire Department. Law enforcement sources tell us, David, there are believed to be fatalities. It's not clear how many. Right now, I see a number of emergency vehicles, fire and police boats trying to assist in the rescue effort, and a number of the commuter ferries have paused operations. There's what looks to be some kind of a cargo ship that isn't moving. They don't want to create any additional wake in the water, David.
Aaron Katersky, our chief investigative correspondent, also there on the scene for us. And I can tell you what Lauren Glassberg was reporting on WABC just moments ago here in New York, that witnesses saw this helicopter come down, and someone reported seeing part of that helicopter actually breaking off before it hit the water. Again, a deadly helicopter crash in the Hudson here in New York. At least 4 people on board. It's unclear, though, how many are casualties here. Our coverage will continue. ABC News Live, abcnews.com. For many of you, your local news is standing by. And, of course, I'll be back at 6:30 with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm David Muir in New York. Good day.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
I'm Eva Pilgrim in New York. Breaking news coverage continues here on ABC News Live. A deadly helicopter crash in the Hudson River between New York City and New Jersey. Law enforcement sources telling ABC News there are fatalities. There's a massive emergency response that you can see here in this live picture we are looking at. It is now underway. Let's bring in Phil Lipoff. Now, you've been covering the news here in New York for a very long time. You actually live not very far from there in New Jersey. Just sort of set the scene for people of where this is and what's going on in that area.
All right, so you see an awful lot of law enforcement boats in the Hudson, and that is on any given day of the week. And you see a ton of helicopters up and down, whether they're sightseeing helicopters, law enforcement helicopters, medical helicopters. They're up and down the Hudson all day long. If something went down, when something goes down like this, people see it. And we have witnesses saying it looks like a piece of the chopper. At least one witness just told our local station here, reporter Lauren Glassberg, that it looked like a piece of the chopper cracked off of it, broke off of it before it hit the water. That will be for the investigation. But what I can tell you about this is there are also boats that ferry across the river all the time, especially from this area, the Hoboken, Jersey City area. There is a terminal that comes over here. This chopper went down basically just above the Holland Tunnel. So if you're picturing New York City here, New Jersey over here, there's the Lincoln Tunnel, then beneath it, down sort of where we are, and if you know the New York area, the Soho, Tribeca, Greenwich Village area, the Holland Tunnel goes straight across, 78 straight across, and that's where the chopper went down, but closer to the New Jersey side. So you have all these law enforcement boats going over there. I should note, after the attacks on the Twin Towers in 9/11, there were an awful lot of boats that ferried people across. When the plane came down on the Hudson, Sully, there were boats that went over and helped rescue. So there are always boats in the water, whether they're law enforcement or commercial. And everybody's just trying to help out right now. But as you heard Aaron report on ABC News, it looks like law enforcement are telling us that there are fatalities. We don't know how many. It looks like there may have been at least 4 people on board that chopper. We don't know in what capacity just yet.
But the response to this crash has been incredibly fast.
Almost instantaneous. And that's the thing with the Hudson River. As I said, there's so much commercial traffic up and down the Hudson on not only boats, but helicopters. So when something happens, I covered the miracle on the Hudson. I was there that day working for WABC when that plane cleared the George Washington Bridge by just 800 feet, came down in the Hudson, and you see all those amazing pictures of people who were on board that plane, passengers on the wings of the plane, boats. Everybody just dropped what they were doing. Ferries that were taking people across the Hudson went and helped rescue. And that's what happens in a situation like this. So you not only have the law enforcement out there, but as Aaron said, it looks like they've stopped some of the traffic. They don't want to create any more waves in the Hudson, which, by the way, people might not know, has a pretty rough current.
Yeah, it is pretty wavy as you go across the Hudson River. Let's bring in aviation expert, Mr. Nance, for us. John Nance, if you could just explain to us what you're hearing. We're hearing that there is some part of the helicopter that came off. What does that tell you about the situation?
Well, that tells me that there's a high likelihood that the chopper was having a mechanical problem and it continued to progress as they were trying to make a landing. Any helicopter can do what we call an autogyro without an engine. In other words, you basically manipulate it so that the wind coming through it as you go down keeps the rotors turning, and at the last you can feather it out. If that's what he was trying, and then a part of the helicopter came off, let's say the tail boom or the tail rotor, that would have been impossible to control. This is all speculation at the moment. All we know is we have the chopper in the water. We don't even know what type it was. But more than likely, if that report of something falling off the helicopter before its impact with the water was correct, then this was a progressive mechanical problem.
Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky is on the phone. You are near that scene. Aaron, just lay out for us exactly where you are and what you're seeing right now.
I'm just across the Hudson River on the New York side. The chopper went down closer to the New Jersey side, Eva, and right across from the entrance to the Holland Tunnel, there were at least 4 people, if not more, on board this passenger helicopter believed to have been operated by New York helicopters. Law enforcement sources tell ABC News there are believed to be fatalities. The exact number is not clear. There are a number of boats from the FDNY and the NYPD assisting in the rescue effort. I'm here on a pier where a number of firefighters are now leaving the scene. We've seen a number of gurneys being taken away empty, although there are more here on standby should they be needed. But most of the activities now on the New Jersey side. Some of the ferry traffic has resumed, but there are a number of law enforcement boats surrounding the crash site to make sure nothing else gets near, and they kind of want to take the current to a minimum as much as possible because it's a little bit windy out here, Eva.
And Aaron, you mentioned the name of the helicopter company. Do we have any sense of what kind of helicopter this was?
It could be tourist, but it could also be used to ferry folks from the city to the airport or vice versa. The helicopter traffic over the Hudson River is not unusual. There are helicopters above me now. These are law enforcement helicopters and drones, so they can get an idea of the scope of the crash site. But helicopter traffic above the river is not unusual. Accidents happen from time to time. We've seen them, but we're still waiting for confirmed information. It appears part of the rotor may have snapped off in the collision with the water. So we're still trying to wait for officials to tell us just what went on here.
And as far as we know this Hudson River is very, very busy, especially at this time of day with just regular boat traffic and ferries that are going across it. Do they have any sense where these fatalities came from? Is it boats that were in the water or these helicopter passengers?
From what law enforcement sources are saying, it appears the helicopter, although, we can't be certain just yet. I see the chief of department for the New York City Fire Department standing on a gangway at a pier here at the river. He's on the phone, undoubtedly getting some information. We'll hope to get some ourselves. But it looks like it's going to be a New Jersey side investigation. And it's kind of a gray overcast, starting to rain here. So there wouldn't be a lot of boats in the water, but there would be some commuter ferries. But the fatalities, however many occurred, believed to have been on the helicopter itself.
Okay, Aaron Katersky, we'll let you go so you can go talk to those investigators there on the scene and get more information for us. Phil, he was talking about this is going to be, looks like something that's going to be handled from the New Jersey side as far as this investigation because it happened closer to that shoreline.
Yeah, and Eva, as I look at these live images that are coming in, there was an angle where you see this white statue. I don't know if you saw it in the background. It's a man going like this. That statue is called Water's Soul, and it's right over in Jersey City. It's on the waterfront. There are a lot of luxury apartment buildings over there that go from Jersey City right into Hoboken, then up West New York. That's the coastline where a lot of people live to have a good view of the city. They live right there on the water. So you're going to have a lot of people with their windows facing out to the Hudson, seeing the traffic, as I talked about, go by. Aaron mentioned there are helicopters all the time on the Hudson. We have an eyewitness that I believe WABC, our local station here in New York, talked to. Let's listen to the witness sound.
It sounded like a sonic boom on my right. So I look up and literally I just see a helicopter splitting in two with the rotor flying off in the sky. It was going so fast and it just went straight into the water. Like it was, I've never seen anything like that, man.
Yeah, it's got to be a scary thing to see. As I said, I'm one of the people who live in and around that area, a little further up. But you watch the traffic, and it's beautiful to see these helicopters. And sometimes you see military helicopters, and sometimes you see formations. It's, this is the biggest city in the country. A lot happens here. But when something happens catastrophic, as it appears something has in the Hudson, you don't get law enforcement to something quicker than that. Yeah. You saw the response. We got word around 3:33, and there were law enforcement boats headed toward this crash site.
Yeah, all of our phones are blowing up. Yeah. People saying that they saw, it was sort of you were like, wait, what? A helicopter just went down in the Hudson, and our office is right here, basically at the Holland Tunnel. Let's bring in aviation analyst John Nance once again. You heard Aaron describe this idea that the rotor had broken off. How common is something like that to happen with a helicopter?
Incredibly uncommon. These are very resilient machines, whatever the type of manufacturer or whichever one that you might have. Very seldom do you actually see a disintegration of the main focal point of lift, which is the rotor system. And if that, in fact, was what happened, we just heard one of the eyewitnesses say that something like that occurred. It looked like one of the blades went off and then the craft went straight in. That is probably not a survivable accident. And that's the sort of thing that a pilot has absolutely no control over. If your main system of the rotor system goes away or breaks, then you're pretty much along for the ride.
And explain for people who don't understand how helicopters work, just what would happen to a pilot in that situation? What would they experience? What would their normal reactions be then?
Well, you have, in a helicopter is also known as a rotary wing aircraft. In other words, the wing is not fixed like on a regular airplane. It rotates around, whether it's 4 blades, 5 blades, or more. And they have a stability in them that is derived from several controls in the cockpit that the pilot is always holding on to, one called a collective and another called a cyclic. If your rotor system disintegrates, goes away, stops, blows up, or loses a blade, your whole ability to fly is 100% compromised at that point, and you're simply going to go down. If you have the engine go out or some problem that you need to make an emergency landing, but the rotor system is still going, you can do a thing called autogyro. Helicopters are able to do that and set it down gently somewhere. But this does not sound like something that was recoverable from the point of view of the pilot, even though the pilot would have been doing everything he could or she could to control the aircraft.
And I just saw an update come through our email here from Josh Margolin, who is one of our investigative reporters here at ABC News, saying that there were at least 5 people on board, children and adults. John Nance, if you could just explain to people, as a pilot is losing this kind of power, the rotary is not working. Basically, this means his helicopter is not flying anymore. Is there any chance that pilot could put the helicopter down on the water in some sort of safe way?
Well, unlike a fixed-wing airplane, which you can turn the engine off and glide easily, helicopters' lift comes from those rotating blades. And if that system is compromised, you don't have any way of holding the craft up long enough to get it down safely or gently. So it's an all or nothing proposition. And this is one of the things that there are tens of thousands of helicopters around the world, all operating pretty much every day, and a lot around New York. And when you look at the level of safety, the record is really tremendous. But those blades do not come apart. The hub of the aircraft, the rotor does not come apart. It's very seldom that we have a helicopter crash that resulted from a disintegration of the lift system. That's what this begins to sound like, and it's very rare.
Keep an eye to see exactly what caused this helicopter crash, obviously. Phil, it looks like you're getting some more information over here.
Yeah, this is unfolding pretty quickly, and you've been to crash scenes as well. It's gruesome, and law enforcement and first responders can tell pretty quickly if there are fatalities, depending on the scene. And Aaron Katersky, who is out there gathering for us, looking to get in front of the camera as soon as he can, has just reported that law enforcement sources are telling ABC News that at least 3 of the 5 people on board are dead.
Oh, wow.
And what we had heard right before that, where there were at least 5 people on board, children and adults, and now we're hearing at least 3 of them are dead. And this is as they're, you can see them out there right now, trying to help people who are in the water, recover people who are in the water, and that's what we know right now.
As they are trying to, take a hold of this scene and to see if there's any survivors out there, walk people through what these investigators are doing in these waters right now.
Well, right now, if they are not telling us that they know what condition all 5 or so people who are on board that chopper are in, right now it's an emergency rescue response recovery. They're in there looking for everybody. Are people strapped into their seats underwater? Are they out of the water trying to survive? That's what they're trying to figure out right now. The investigation, as John Ants talks about, will unfold over the coming hours and the coming days. Right now, they are worried about human life. And best they can tell us right now is that 3 of the 5 people they believe on board are dead. So it's going to be a catastrophic event, no matter what happens.
Yeah, and John, back to you on this. These types of investigations into what cause helicopter crashes, this isn't an answer we're going to have today.
No, it's not. First of all, keep in mind there is never just one cause to an aviation accident. Never seen it, never will. There's always a multiplicity of causes and contributing factors. That's going to take a while to unravel. And it's not just because that's the way the National Transportation Safety Board normally works. It's because that's what's necessary to be able to put all these pieces together. And this may be what I kind of refer to as a metallurgical accident, which means that they're going to have to find out what broke, when it broke, how it broke, etc., in order to be able to understand the flight dynamics and how the chopper went down.
How do they go about doing that, especially once a helicopter has come apart and it's in the water like it is now?
The number one thing will be to preserve the scene. The scene is in water, so getting as much of the wreckage up both now and later is going to be very important, especially, as I say, if these reports are correct and the craft came apart in the air in whole or in part. When you look at a break point, for instance, on a rotor blade or on a component of the key element of the aircraft's stability, which is the rotor hub, metallurgists have become incredibly good, especially at the NTSB, of looking at hairline cracks and finding things that the average expert would not see and being able to say, okay, this is how the propagation of the problem started. Now, we're just guessing right now because we don't know what came apart, if it did, how it did. But the experts at the NTSB, it's about a 390-person organization, and they literally are world-class in being able to put together a scenario that looks almost impossible to explain based on metal, based on the mechanisms involved, the engine, all of it. So we can trust that's going to happen. It'll just take a while.
This video that's coming in that we're watching of this scene right now, what strikes me is that almost all of these boats have lights on them. So these are investigative boats that are in this area. They've kind of cordoned off this specific area there in the Hudson.
Yeah, and as we were talking about earlier, looking at some of the emails that are coming through with our reporting and cleared video that we can see. And you can see that those boats are surrounding it. But because of the current, because this helicopter appears to be upside down, they've gotten a smaller boat out there.
Mm-hmm. And this is new video in that we've just been able to get in here, Phil.
Okay, so you see the bigger boats around it. They've launched some smaller boats off of that to get closer to the chopper. I don't know right now if there are divers in there. I have not been told that, but I know they are trying to get as close as they can to get a handle on, are people still in the chopper? Where is everybody? Because right now, as law enforcement is reporting it to us, we only have accounted 3 of the 5 people they are telling us are on board, and those 3 people are dead.
Mm-hmm. And you can look at those smaller boats. Those are the types of boats they usually do send divers off of, or people into the water if they're going to go into the water to get people.
Yeah, those would be either FDNY or NYPD. And yeah, they'll be getting people. If there aren't people, I'd be surprised if people weren't in the water already. But then you see the look on the periphery. Those are other boats without the lights on, and you can see some of them heading up. They're trying to control the traffic that would be in and around that area anyways. If you see in the distance, just beyond where those boats are, this whole area of New Jersey, from Jersey City up through Hoboken and into West New York and New Jersey, and then into Edgewater. There are ferries that come out of Edgewater and come out of Jersey City and head right across the Hudson. In 10 minutes, you're in New York City. People commute every single day. So you constantly have those ferries back and forth. So yeah, Erin's right. They're going to be controlling traffic, and they're going to be trying to get everybody out of that water.
One of the other things I'm noticing looking at this video right now, we talked about this earlier, that current. You can see just how quickly the water is moving there in the Hudson at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And from when I've spoken to people about the current in the Hudson, it moves in different ways too. It's very tricky. That's why, we've done stories when people have been in there trying to swim or have fallen off something. Okay, so this looks like it's perhaps our local station, WABC. I hear a reporter. I can't recognize the voice, but now you're getting a really up close look from, it appears, the shoreline. I'm not sure, from the Jersey shoreline. Yeah. And you're looking at those boats. That's the NYPD right there. You can see with the blue lights.
It looks like the Coast Guard there.
The Coast Guard. I mean, this is how quickly it happens, Eva. They were on top of this crash scene within 10 minutes, everybody.
Well, and you have to remember the port authorities right there. There's so many different law enforcement.
That right there is the chopper. Do you see sort of in the middle of the screen, the camera's pulling back? That's Sandra Bookman from our local affiliate. But as the camera was pushed in upside down and it was almost yellow, you could see the chopper is upside down, as witnesses have reported to us. If we get back to that shot, you can see it pretty clearly upside down.
So the helicopter looks to be, for the most part, completely in the water, just barely out.
Oh yeah, no, it's the part that the people would be in, the at least 5 people that the law enforcement are telling us, that part is submerged. The part that the helicopter lands on, and John would be much better at this, but those 2 pieces the helicopter sets down on when you see it land the right way, those are up out of the water, and the rest of the chopper, it appears to be submerged.
Let's go back to John and just ask him, when you see something like that, the bottom of the helicopter just barely poking out of the water, does that tell you anything about what happened here?
Actually, it does. If I could get a slightly closer view, I'd be able to tell you whether or not those were inflatable pontoons. They kind of look like it. If that's the case, whether they're emergency inflatables or not, and the thing is upside down in the water, that indicates that it did not hit the water in a controlled way. And of course, that's what we're hearing from at least one eyewitness, the idea that something came apart from the chopper and it went almost straight in. If it were sitting upright on those 2 pontoons, that would indicate a soft landing.
And is that just part of the helicopter, or did that happen because of the crash that those inflatables went off?
I really don't know, of course, because of I don't know the kind of system they had on this particular helicopter, but many times, especially like, for instance, on what we call the Bell Jet Ranger, these will be identifiable on the top of the skids, but they're not inflated unless they hit water. And when they hit water, they automatically inflate, or the pilot can inflate them ahead of time.
Okay.
In this case, yeah.
Phil is taking a closer look at one of the images that we've been able to get of that helicopter there in the water. What do you see in
John,
this image? I'm
curious, John, because you're talking about these inflatables, and what I can see in the close-up pictures that have been cleared by our visual verification team, it appears the pontoons are coming out of the water, and at the edge, not so much in the middle, but at the edge, it looks like Looks like almost one section of a black inflatable and one section of a tan inflatable right at the edge of that pontoon. Is that where they come up on some helicopters, just at the edge?
Yes, in many cases, they've got to have enough lateral stability fore and aft to be able to take the center of gravity of the aircraft and safely go over waves. So it's not a short thing. It's not just like a ball, for instance. These are standing lenticular, I guess would be another way to put it.
We have one of those images on the screen right now. I don't know if you can see it, John, to take a better look at exactly what's happening in the water with this helicopter.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. That is, well, it's consistent with an entry into the water that was not controlled and that was possibly, I don't want to say fast. Let's say the report that we heard that something came off and it went straight in. That would not be inconsistent with what we're seeing.
And in one of those kinds of situations, how quickly would water get into a helicopter like this?
If you enter the water upside down in an uncontrolled way, it's going to be probably instantaneous because it's going to blow out windows and doors. And I've seen this rather happen at other places and times when a helicopter is able to touch down on inflatable pontoons, but for some reason it can't handle the waves or the weight is off and it rolls over and all you see are the pontoons sticking up. In this particular case, I don't see anything coherent enough to indicate that the airplane did not go straight into the water.
Let's bring in ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent Eric Kontursky. He's live there on the scene. Aaron, what's the latest from your vantage point?
According to law enforcement sources to ABC News, Eva, there was a family from Spain, tourists from Spain, on board the helicopter when it crashed on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. There were 2 adults and 3 children on board. In addition to the pilot, at least 3 people are dead, according to law enforcement sources. It's not clear which 3, but the helicopter was carrying this family of 5 from Spain, it's believed, as tourists. When it went down on the New Jersey side, there are at least 3 fatalities so far, we're told. Right now, this is still an active scene with rescue boats in the water. Although some river traffic has resumed, it started to rain here, complicating matters for those first responders who are on the water. You might be able to see here behind me a number of New York City firefighters, police officers gathered. They had massed here just in case they were needed for search and rescue, but this is going to be a New Jersey investigation, it looks like, Eva.
Aaron, you can hear all of the noise there behind you and that rain just making matters so much worse. Phil, you're getting more information from witnesses that saw this happen.
Yeah, and I'd be interested if John can still hear us, what he makes of this. We spoke to a woman named Danny. She's in an apartment there. As I was telling you, people, there are going to be no shortage of people who saw this happen because people are just looking outside all the time. She says, and we'll quote it because we have it here, "I watched it fall out of the sky. I heard 5 or 6 loud noises that sounded almost like gunshots in the sky and saw pieces fall off. Then I watched it fall into the river." So I'm wondering, John, if you can still hear us, does that tell you anything? 5 or 6 pops before
Yeah, it suggests something that is rare but has happened, unfortunately, too many times, and that is a situation where the blades of the helicopter, the rotor system, begins to strike the tail, and that would be a succession of pops as each one of those strikes occurs. It also is possible that could be from the engine, but I don't know yet whether this is a turbine helicopter, in which case it's not going to make sounds like that. The engine isn't. Or whether it's a piston helicopter. But I'd say the more likely situation that would fit what she described is an unstable rotor system that begins to eat itself. In other words, as each blade goes by, it hits the tail rotor boom and makes those successive noises.
We're hearing now that the FAA and the NTSB are en route to that location as they begin their investigation. That's according to a law enforcement official. John, you've said this already a couple of times, that how rare something like this is to happen, but walk us through these helicopters. They're checked, I would imagine, on a pretty regular basis.
Oh, yes. And anything in commercial service is checked and checked and rechecked in a helicopter situation because you've got so many moving parts that are so critical in the rotor system. That is constantly looked at. There are all sorts of ground checks that need to be done before every flight. I can say that we in the aviation business worldwide pretty much know how to do all that. Are shortcuts sometimes taken or accidents in terms of setting up the cockpit? Yes. But as far as the integrity of the rotor system that holds that craft in the air, those are just an amazing amount of achievement that has occurred over the last 50 years in making these things almost impervious to disintegration in the air.
Just hard to hear, though. 5 people, a family of 5 from Spain, 3 children. Phil, you're getting more information as well.
Yeah, and this again goes to back up some of what John is talking about right now. There is video that we have obtained. I'm not. We're not. I don't know that we're going to be able to show right now, but I'm seeing it come into our reporting channel, our emails, and it says there is strong video showing the moments following the helicopter crashing into the water. This is following, and then
it right here.
There it is. And what you can see after is the blades crashing in, or some of the blades crashing in after the helicopter. So the chopper came down, and then you see, guys, can you tell me if that is the chopper that we see? There it is. Okay, so that first splash you saw in the forefront is the helicopter. The second splash you saw that looks to be, I don't know, 40, 50 yards away from it with blades.
A little bit of a distance away.
Came down separately.
John, what does that tell you? Does that give you any more information about what happened here?
Pretty much confirms what we were talking about, that the system began to come apart on them, the hub and rotor system. And with those noises, as I say, that really indicates that it was probably hitting the tail boom, 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 and then they would have been torn away. The craft itself would have gone straight in, and the blades would come down a tiny bit later. Very consistent with what we're seeing.
Yeah, there seems to have been a delay in the blade being in the sky longer and then coming down that distance away from where the helicopter crashed. Like they completely came apart.
Yeah, the blades are moving, and the blades are aerodynamic, and so they're not going to just fall like the helicopter body will itself without any means of support. So it's perfectly logical to me that maybe 1 or 2 blades went straight in, and maybe 1 or more was a little bit slower in hitting the surface of the water. They're not going to go in predictable directions when that sort of thing happens.
All right, Phil, you're getting a little bit more information.
Yeah, it's an FAA statement below that we're getting in, and it's always subject to change. It's preliminary, as the FAA says, but they say a Bell 206 helicopter crashed, submerged in the Hudson in New York City. We now know it's closer to the Jersey side. The number of people on board is unknown at this time. That's coming from the FAA. But remember, Aaron Katersky's reporting from law enforcement is that there were five people on board, women, adults and children, and that 3 are dead. The FAA goes on to say the National Transportation Safety Board is going to investigate. The NTSB will be lead on this investigation. So again, the FAA always puts out preliminary information. Sometimes we get some more granular information from law enforcement sources on the ground as we're watching divers. And we were talking about divers a short time ago get into the water.
Yeah, we're seeing those divers right there at the edge of the water. A family of 5 tourists from Spain, 2 adults, 3 children on that helicopter as it went down, as well as the pilot. Phil, John, I know you're going to continue to follow this with us. We will keep up with this story. Coming up, more breaking news. U.S. stocks closed sharply lower today amid Wall Street whiplash over President Trump's tariff policy reversal. We have more details straight ahead.
The news never stops.
From Tampa, we are here tonight as Hurricane Milton has just made landfall.
The surge just keeps coming up.
Right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
We're in artillery position about 2 miles away from Gaza.
And ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
We're not far from where this rally took place, so just stick with us here.
Traveling with the president to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Here in London today.
Off the coast of Gaza.
Downtown Tel Aviv, rockets or missiles coming in.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii. Some areas are still smoldering.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines,
the ruins of Rafah.
From the FBI.
Reporting from Capitol Hill.
In western Portugal.
Outside of Mexico City.
In Iceland. Let's go.
Here in France,
The eclipse across America.
Just stunning.
Unbelievable.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is,
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere because the news never stops.
huddle up, Team GMA.
Larry, we're right here.
Oh, sorry.
We're right
I got
here.
excited.
GMA wants to know who's the best coach in your community, in your child's life, who's made such a huge difference, because we're on the lookout for.
Are you ready to find the best coaches across America?
GMA wants to know about the impact of a dedicated coach in your town, so scan this code, nominate your favorite coach right now.
Let's honor the best coaches in America.
Thank you, Coach.
Lori Vallow Daybell seemingly had it all until she fell in love with this man and his mission.
How does this seemingly normal lady next door become this doomsday killer?
Now, Lori Vallow Daybell on trial again, this time for the suspicious death of her fourth husband.
A family tragedy is not a crime. It's a tragedy.
The Doomsday Mom Murders. Lori Vallow Daybell back on trial. Now streaming on Hulu.
We're following more breaking news here on ABC News Live. Reports stocks taking another nosedive one day after President Trump's pause on some tariffs triggered that historic market rally. Major stock indexes plummeting as investors failed to shake off fears over the president increasing tariffs against China to a whopping 145%. The anxiety even overshadowing positive new inflation numbers. Still, the president brushing off concerns of Chinese retaliation when pressed by our White House correspondent, Karen Travers.
China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
And this comes as new research from Yale University shows the president's current tariff system will cost the average household an estimated $4,700 per year. Our ABC News team has been following every move of this story. Let's bring in senior White House correspondent Selena Wang and senior reporter Catherine Falders from our D.C. bureau. Selena, let's start with you. President Trump, we saw him there today, just brushing off economic concerns, saying everything is, quote, going to work out very well. Is the president giving any more insight at this point about his plan here?
Yeah, Eva, the president brushing off the market turmoil, but he did acknowledge that there's going to be, quote, what he called transition problems here. Now, the president, he did provide a little more clarity on what these negotiations are going to look like. He said that he will be flexible when it comes to possible exemptions for countries and companies for his tariffs. He also said that there's negotiating space for countries to negotiate below that 10% baseline tariffs. But what we're seeing with this market fall is the realization setting in with investors and businesses that this trade war with China is only escalating. We are talking about staggeringly high tariffs of 145% on one of our biggest trading partners. And even with this 90-day pause, according to the Yale Budget Lab, the effective tariff rate that consumers are facing right now in the U.S. is still at the highest level in more than 100 years, estimating that on average, an average household would be spending more than $4,700 more in just the span of 1 year. So still a lot of questions here about what comes next. But those cabinet secretaries in that room during the meeting today, they were putting the praise on President Trump, saying that a lot of countries are only willing to come to the table and negotiate more fair deals because of the tariff strategy that President Trump has put in place.
Catherine, the economic turmoil putting a lot of political pressure on the administration. What are you hearing about how the president's team is advising him in this moment as he defends his decision making?
Well, look, we know that Trump is constantly talking to his advisors behind the scenes, but at least what we see publicly, Eva, is that his top advisors essentially are saying they're working the phones, they're actively involved in these negotiations with various different countries, and that various different deals are on the table here, but at the same time, they're revealing very few details about what exactly is going on behind the scenes. You heard this from the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, for example, who said the U.S. has so many countries to talk to on potential deals, but he wasn't giving specific examples about what those countries were. He said that multiple countries had come with offers that they would never have come with in the first place and to the table before all of this happened. We also do know that the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently recently met with Vietnam's deputy prime minister. And according to the readout from the Treasury Department, the two countries agreed to begin formal discussions. So during this pause, of course, on these tariffs and these negotiations will obviously be happening over the next few months. The big question does still remain, what will any potential negotiations look like with China? Trump has said that he believes China wants to come to the table, that he wants to make, that they want to make a deal. But the reality is there doesn't appear to have been any communications between the two countries, between the U.S. and China. Instead, according to reports, China is, in fact, reaching out to other nations, engaging with other nations, for example, negotiating closer trade with the EU as all of this unfolds.
And Selena, let's talk about some of those deals that are lingering out there. The White House says it's gotten 15 explicit offers for trade deals and that more than 75 countries have reached out at this point. I'm curious, though, how is the administration going to negotiate all of these deals within just 90 days?
It's really not a lot of time. I mean, trade negotiations are extremely tricky and complex, are also time consuming. And we're talking about more than 75 countries. And the administration is saying that they want to do tailored, bespoke deals. The president was asked by our Karen Travers in the cabinet meeting about what happens at the end of those 90 days if he can't reach a deal. The president suggested that these tariffs could just go back to that very high reciprocal rate before he instituted that pause. So a lot of concerns there, not to mention when it comes to China, what I'm hearing from experts is that Beijing is doubling down, digging in. They're not planning to blink first.
All right. Selena Wang, Catherine Felders, thank you both for joining us. Let's go back now to our other breaking news here on ABC News Live. A deadly helicopter crash in the Hudson River between New York City and New Jersey. We are told there are several people who have died. A massive emergency response is underway at this hour. We've got team coverage. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katursky is there on the scene. We're also joined by aviation expert John Nance. Aaron, let's start with you. What's the latest from your vantage point?
This helicopter crashed on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River around 3:30 in the afternoon. Eva, it was carrying a family from Spain, tourists who were surveying the beautiful New York City skyline. 2 adults and 3 children, along with a pilot, were on board. At this point, law enforcement sources tell ABC News 5 people have been confirmed dead. They're searching for the 6th person, the 6th occupant of the helicopter, in the water now. You can see behind me a number of FDNY firefighters, police officers from the NYPD staged here at the pier along the Hudson River, anticipating that they could be needed for search and rescue. Right now, though, it's on the New Jersey side where the helicopter, the rotor appears to have snapped off upon collision, and that's where the effort is concentrated right now, Eva.
Let's bring in John Nance, aviation expert. We've gotten to see a lot of videos of that helicopter as it's gone into the water. It looked like the blades crashed shortly after the rest of the helicopter went in. Walk us through what this video and what we can see now tells us about what happened here.
Well, with that and with some of the eyewitness reports provided, they are consistent. We have a Bell 206. This is a Bell Jet Ranger. It is a very, very ubiquitous helicopter and a very good one. Some of the noises that were heard were probably the rotor system, and there's only 2 blades in the rotor system smashing against the tail of the aircraft and tearing it apart. That's one possibility that's not definitive, but that would then leave the rest of the helicopter to go straight in, and it would probably roll over once it hit the water, and you would see pretty much what you're seeing in the one picture that I'm looking at, where the skids, as they're called, or the helicopter body is upside down, and you're seeing just those pontoons of skids.
And just a short time ago, we were looking at the live video of that helicopter there in the water and the search that's going on. Aaron Katursky, let's bring you back in here. It looks like there are it appears divers in the water at this hour as they continue this effort.
And they are, Eva, right now you can see the NYPD boat just coming in to where I am here after being on scene at the crash site over on the New Jersey side of the river. At this point, we know that 5 people are confirmed dead, and they are in the water searching for the 6th occupant of the helicopter. Again, there were 2 adults, 3 kids, a family from Spain, along with the pilot of the helicopter on board when it crashed around 3:30 in the afternoon. on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River, and there was a tremendous response. I could hear it along the West Side Highway of emergency vehicles streaming here to the pier, anticipating that more search and rescue could be needed. We've seen a number of firefighters, police officers come and go, empty gurneys. It just doesn't look like there's anyone to save at this point, Eva.
And what you've been telling us, that it was a family of 5 from Spain, tourists who were sightseeing here in New York City, 2 parents, 3 children, and a pilot on that helicopter. John Nance, I want to show you this dramatic new video that we have just gotten in that shows us this helicopter, parts of it. You can see it there. It looks like something crashing to the ground. That's not in the water. Can you tell us, to you, what does that look like?
Well, I see one part flying away and at a higher altitude than the body of the chopper as it goes almost straight in, as one person described it. That again tends to confirm what I was saying earlier, which is that more than likely you had a loss of lift on the chopper, which meant that your rotor system was compromised in one form or another. There was nothing to hold the helicopter up. There are no fixed wings. And once that happens, you become a ballistic item headed for the water. That's consistent with what we just saw.
And you were explaining this to us earlier. Just for people who have not been in a helicopter, how does a helicopter work and how important are those blades? Is it even possible to land a helicopter if the blades are not a part of it anymore?
Well, in the short term, or I should say the short answer to that is no, it's not possible. Your lift in a fixed wing airplane are the wings, and they're not going anywhere. So you can turn off the engines and still glide and still fly the airplane as long as you stay above the surface. In a helicopter, your entire means of support is the rotor blades, the hub and the blades, whether they're 2, 3, or 4. As they rotate around, they are rotary wings, and they provide the lift as well as the control for the helicopter. But if you remove those by some sort of an accident, by some internal failure, by even a mid-air collision, you no longer have any means of supporting the helicopter in the air, and it's going to become ballistic and go straight in. And that appears to be a rough estimate of what happened.
Danny Horbiak, who was an eyewitness, she saw this crash from her apartment window. She's joining us now on the phone. Danny, exactly where are you located?
Hi there. So I'm in Newport in Jersey City. I am basically directly inland of the large structure that's over the Holland Tunnel. So I have a great view right now of everything going on, and it's been wild.
And what did you see out your window?
So I heard it first. I heard what sounded like a series of, it almost sounded like a gunshot to me. I haven't heard something that loud before. It was a series of maybe 5 or 6 big bangs, which directed me to look out of my window, and I saw basically what looked like the helicopter falling apart.
And so you heard those noises. That's what caused you to go to your window?
Yeah. I work from home full time, and my desk faces the city. So I was watching the helicopter. As soon as I looked outside, it's all I could see over the river.
And how quickly did this happen?
It was seconds. I work in the film industry, so when I see something crazy like this, my first response is to take out my phone. But by the time it was done, I didn't even have my hands on it. So it was seconds.
And how often do you see helicopters out of your window on a normal basis?
Oh, I'm seeing them all day long. I guess they normally fly up and down the river. So, if I'm looking outside at any time, I can see, even within an hour, I'm seeing multiple helicopters.
And as you saw this helicopter go into the water, how quickly did you see first responders come over to start to help?
The first boat that I saw come by actually looked like one of the ferries that goes back and forth across the river. So I saw what looked like several ferries coming by, and then I started to see ships that had the flashing lights on them. So it was within minutes, and I actually did call 911 when I watched, but I assumed that they had already been on the line with somebody else. By the time they called me back, there were already all kinds of cops on the scene. I could see there were cops across the river too, and there were cops here in Jersey. So the response time was almost immediate.
Looking out of your window right now, what are you seeing going on in the waters there?
For a while, I was seeing what looked like a very small dinghy with a few people in black, and I assumed that was maybe the search effort. I don't see that dinghy anymore, but I do see an ambulance that is on the stretch of pier that leads up to that structure that's right next to them. I see a bunch of ships are still over there, some large, some small, and there are a ton of cop cars still parked on my street. So it looks like the efforts are still ongoing.
Danny, thank you so much for calling in and for sharing with us what you were able to see out of your window today. We appreciate it. Let's bring back in ABC News Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky. You're there on the scene. What's the latest, Aaron?
Guys, you here? Can you talk to us?
Give us a moment.
We're just talking with the deputy mayor for public safety here. There are now 6 confirmed fatalities as a result of this helicopter crash on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. The family from Spain, 3 children, 2 adults, plus the pilot, all now confirmed dead. We're told Mayor Eric Adams is on his way here to the pier on the Hudson River and will give us a briefing about the response. But there have been, for the last little while now, a number of police officers, firefighters. We just saw a number of them getting off the NYPD boat that's now making its way back across the river. So the search and recovery is now over. All 6 people on board that helicopter confirmed dead, Eva.
Aaron, I can see that they've put up police tape there behind you. That's new since the last time we talked to you. Walk us through what this scene is looking like at this moment.
Yeah, so this pier is along the West Side Highway down from Houston Street, and it's right across from where the scene on the Jersey side where the chopper went down around 3:30 in the afternoon. You can still see the fire and police boats that are in the water as they work to secure the wreckage from the helicopter so the NTSB can conduct its investigation, figure out what caused the crash. But there had been an immediate response to try and do search and rescue. Unfortunately, that proved to be for naught, because all 6 people aboard the helicopter have now been confirmed dead, according to law enforcement sources to ABC News, and we're waiting for an update now from the mayor. On board, a family from Spain, tourists visiting New York, 3 children and 2 adults, along with the pilot, all died aboard.
And Aaron, this is seems to be quite the response out there. How quickly were they able to get to this scene?
Almost immediately, Eva, and I heard it before I saw it. You could see the emergency vehicles, hear the sirens streaming down the highway on the New York side of the river to try and get closer onto the pier here in Hudson River Park. And then it became clear that the helicopter went down closer to the New Jersey side, close to Jersey City. The New Jersey side of the river. So there was an all-out response on that side of the Hudson River. And almost immediately there were fire and police boats on the water. So the response time was nearly immediate. They halted commuter ferry traffic and other business traffic in the river so as not to create any current around the wreckage with divers in the water.
And Aaron, now that they have determined that all 6 aboard that helicopter have died, what are the next steps here in this investigation?
We're told the NTSB will be on its way to determine what caused the helicopter crash, to see what they might be able to learn from the accident. But we're still waiting to get an identity on the victims. Undoubtedly, there will be consular services from Spain that will have to get involved, notify a family back home. We still don't know who these folks were, other than this family of 5 from Spain visiting the area and in a helicopter to see the sights.
What more do we know about the helicopter that they were in today?
You know, I actually haven't been able to get much or see much. I know you were looking at videos, but I haven't been able to see any of the pictures. It's believed to be operated by New York Helicopters, a tourist helicopter company, and that is not uncommon. All sorts of tourist helicopters all the time along the Hudson, viewing the magnificent New York City skyline, popular with tourists. In fact, there was an accident of a tourist helicopter. I think it killed tourists from Italy, but this was quite a number of years ago, and there had been calls to regulate some of these tourist helicopters, or at least reduce the traffic along the busy Hudson River. which is, part of the flight path for nearby LaGuardia, Kennedy, and Newark airports. But be that as it may, this helicopter was conducting a sightseeing tour with this family from Spain, and all 6 aboard were killed.
Let's bring in aviation expert John Nance. If you could kind of break down for us, what do we know about the helicopter that was involved in this accident?
Well, first of all, it's called a Bell 206, probably the B model. It has one seat up front for the pilot, and in the back there are 3 seats facing 2 seats. It can be a very luxurious interior. Very stable machines. There are tens of thousands of them have been built over the many years that they've been in service. And this type of accident, if in fact we are correct and the hub and blades came apart in the air, it's extremely rare. Matter of fact, it's more than extremely rare. It's almost unheard of. We have a lot of helicopter accidents that are a result of pilot failures or human factors and that sort of thing. But disassembly in the air is incredibly odd. And I know the NTSB is going to be looking for everything. Nothing is ever ruled out in the beginnings of an investigation. But one of the elements that they will go after principally is the system that's called the hub and the blades of the chopper, and how they managed to come apart in the air, if that's what happened.
And for people who don't know what this kind of helicopter is, you said there's 3 seats on one side and 2 on the other. Just how big of an area inside of this helicopter?
Oh, it's snug. It's like getting into a nice SUV and having facing seats, which is pretty rare. But it's not uncomfortably snug. But you've got 3 people looking forward, 2 aft, and then the pilot up front. And the aircraft's capability, the helicopter's capability to lift the weight of that sort of a load is very good. It's a very powerful bird, usually twin engines.
We just got some information from Sam Sweeney, who is one of our reporters on the transportation team, and he's saying that the helicopter is 21 years old, was owned by a leasing company called Meridian Helicopters. Meridian is not the New York City tour operator who was flying it. This was its 6th flight of the day. The flight lasted about 15 minutes around Manhattan before it crashed. 21 years old for a helicopter. Is that very old for a helicopter, John Nance?
Not really. Fixed-wing airplanes can go almost indefinitely as long as they've got good maintenance. I mean, B-52s in the Air Force are all older than the oldest aircraft commander. Helicopters, a little bit less on the long-tooth side. In other words, you don't want to necessarily have the same level of maintenance at age 35 and 40 for a helicopter, because it really becomes very expensive to do that. But the 20 years is an average age for a well-working and well-maintained craft. It doesn't tell me, that at 10 years it's a young airplane and at 40 it should be retired. That's just not the case.
All right. John, Aaron, thank you both for staying with us and for helping us as we continue to cover this story. I'm Eva Pilgrim in New York. Thank you for streaming with us. We'll stay on top of this deadly helicopter crash throughout the day as we wait for New York City officials to provide an update. More breaking coverage here on ABC News Live reports after a quick break.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas,
Edinburgh, Scotland.
From Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home?
We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City.
Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi.
Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
The U.S. Capitol.
Mayfield, Kentucky. Minneapolis.
Mexico. Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
Getting you behind the stories as they happen. Giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains. Thousands.
This killer, he's the dumber you've never heard of.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil. Never before a face-to-face interview with the camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you, am I the evil culprit, the accomplice?
I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, playground of a serial killer, only on Hulu.
Friday nights at 9 on ABC.
Shocking.
New 2020 true crime.
Are you on some kind of sex quest? A sex quest? This is about how I feel, and I want to feel things.
Reporting from the devastating wildfires in Camarillo, California, I'm Melissa Adon. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC's Nightline, the stories that shape your world, that shape your life. Dramatic, stunning, empowering, life-changing. For 45 years, the most powerful stories of our time.
This is Nightline.
Wherever the story is, Nightline will take you there. Just because it's late night doesn't mean you should be in the dark. For a brighter take on the day, this is ABC's Nightline. After Kimmel, late night on ABC.
Okay, come on, let's go. This is a film about the friendship we share with our pets.
Yes.
I rescue cats for a living. I really do feel like we need each other.
Without them, I don't know where I would be. Love is love is love.
It was really nice to have this constant companion.
I'm sure they love me, but they can't love me more than I love them.
It was a kidnapping, torture case.
A crime of greed and cruelty.
The men tortured the victim by beating, tasing, and burning him.
And this is where it gets really horrible. The guy was cutting off my roommates. It was like a bad dream.
This crime was horrific.
He's a psychopath.
How could you possibly defend somebody like that?
This was a story about greed, sadism, evil.
Wicked Game, Devil in the Desert, only on Hulu.
Scamanda. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
Our breaking news coverage continues now on that deadly helicopter crash in the Hudson River in New York City. I'm Eva Pilgrim. Sources telling ABC News all 6 people on the helicopter were killed. A massive emergency response, as you can see there, is still underway. We are expecting an update soon from officials here in New York City. Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky is there on the scene. He's there on the New York City side of that river. Aaron, what's the latest that you are hearing now?
Eva, we've just been watching as some of the FDNY divers who were in the water conducting some of the search and rescue here, they've just come off one of the fireboats, just dropped them off, and you can see that they've unloaded their gear. These divers were in the water almost immediately after this tourist helicopter, the Bell 206, crashed on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River just before 3:30 this afternoon. The helicopter had taken off from the Wall Street heliport carrying a family of 5 tourists from Spain, 2 adults and 3 children. They, along with the pilot, are now believed to be dead. The authorities had recovered 5 bodies. They were still trying to recover 1 more, that of the pilot, it's believed, from the water. But the FDNY divers have now come out and offloaded their gear. Still an active investigation on the New Jersey side of the river with the people trying to secure the wreckage of this Bell 206 tourist helicopter that again crashed a little before 3:30 this afternoon, Eva, and all 6 aboard believed to be dead.
And let's bring in aviation expert John Nance on this Bell 206 helicopter. We know it was 21 years old. This was its 6th flight of the day with those that family of 5 from Spain, 2 adults and 3 children, as well as the pilot that were on board. Based on the images that we have seen of this crash and the eyewitnesses that have described it for us, what does that tell you about what happened here, John?
Well, it suggests, because you never want to be saying that this is definitely what happened in the early stages of an investigation, but it suggests very strongly especially the picture of the body of the helicopter falling ballistically, that the blades, it's a two-blade system on the Jet Ranger, began to strike the structure of the helicopter, most likely the tail boom, and led to disintegration of the blades and the hub, leaving the helicopter without any way of lifting itself, and that's why it went straight in. Why that happened, there are a million different possibilities, most of them metallurgical and mechanical. That will be up for the NTSB to piece together, and they're world-class in being able to do that.
Aaron, how quickly was this emergency response once news of this helicopter crashing came in?
Almost immediately, there were FDNY and NYPD divers that raced to the scene in boats, and you can see, Eva, some of those divers are now offloading their gear. Their work on the river has now concluded, but other boats remain in the water to secure the wreckage. I can see what appears to be a salvage-type boat moving into position toward where the wreckage of the helicopter, the Bell 206 helicopter, is. So they're undoubtedly working to not only secure it, but also recover it so the NTSB can begin its investigation. But these divers from the FDNY that you can see offloading now were in the water almost immediately, working frantically to save lives. And as they were, all traffic on the Hudson River came to a standstill. The commuter ferries that ferry businessmen back and forth from New Jersey to New York, all of the business traffic, the barges, all of that came to a standstill, so they didn't create any additional wake in the water. And that operation has now concluded, with all 6 people aboard the helicopter believed to have been killed.
John, I'm curious, as you see the weather, I mean, we can see Aaron is clearly standing in the rain. It's very dark and cloudy in this live video that we're watching here on the Hudson River. How much could weather have had an impact in all of this?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one that always has to be looked at in terms of putting together all the pieces of an accident. More than likely, I mean, let me put it this way. This was a visual flight, so everybody had the visual capability of keeping the helicopter safe from downtown Manhattan and wherever else. But if you had a weather interaction, it could center on winds, and I'm not aware of any high winds today in the vicinity, but helicopters, because they are churning their way through the air, are subject to wind currents as well. So if there was any potential for interaction, it would be in winds and something encountered by the chopper. I don't believe we're going to find that to be a positive, but by the same token, it has to be looked closely at.
And Aaron, I'm obviously not outside. I can see the weather's not great out there. Can you describe kind of what you're standing in at this moment?
Yeah, it's raining. It's been overcast. It's raining. It's a chilly breeze. The water does have some chop to it. We just saw a bunch of the FDNY divers coming up from the gangway and leaving the scene with some of their gear. You could see the exhaustion in their faces as they left the scene after doing yeoman's work to try and get anybody they could out alive. They were able to recover, unfortunately, people who did not survive from this helicopter crash. But the conditions are certainly suboptimal. Now, it was nicer a little bit earlier, but it is now a cold rain with a chilly breeze here, so certainly not ideal conditions to be doing this kind of recovery work.
And Aaron, are you seeing any wind at all out there at this time or even earlier?
It'd been a little breezy. I'm not sure it would be enough to necessarily keep a helicopter grounded. Certainly this one was in the air, taken off from the Wall Street heliport right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, came down about 20 minutes later on the New Jersey side of the Hudson River. So it wasn't a very long flight, but the wind certainly picked up a little bit in the last hour or so.
And John, I'm curious, with these helicopters, often with planes, we're all a lot more familiar with planes not flying because of bad weather. But is there weather that helicopters don't fly in?
Oh, yes, absolutely. High winds, really high winds would be one consideration. Visual conditions, of course, have to be right. You can fly certain helicopters on instruments, but you have to have them properly equipped. This would not be one of those. And so they would be flying only in visual conditions. And of course, if you had something like a thunderstorm moving through, you would not want to be in the air in a helicopter.
And we saw that this helicopter is 21 years old. Just walk people through, is that old for a helicopter?
Not really. That's middle age, depending on how well she's maintained. This helicopter was obviously a workhorse, had flights before today, and that's the way these normally are, and they usually are meticulously maintained because you've got to maintain a helicopter to a higher level, actually, of scrutiny than you do a fixed-wing airplane, simply because of all the moving parts.
And walk people through what that maintenance looks like. What are those protocols that happen for a helicopter before it even takes off on any given day?
Well, first of all, you've got to be in compliance with the normal inspections for that type of helicopter, and that has to be done on a regular, continuous basis. And those inspections are constantly looking for everything from cracks to missing bolts in any part of the bird or anything, for frayed cables. It's a meticulous thing. And getting ready to fly, you've got to do a ground check before you take it up.
Aaron Koturski, back out to you. As they have now determined that all 6 people on board this helicopter have died, what are investigators now focused on next?
Well, the primary concern, and this will be for the NTSB, is what happened to the helicopter, and that investigation will get going almost immediately. I've seen this, what appears to be a salvage barge with a crane on it, getting into position, perhaps to help secure and eventually lift the wreckage. That will be one part of the investigation. There's going to have to be some consular work from the government of Spain to notify those who have been killed. This family, 3 kids, 2 adults from Spain who were visiting New York, to notify family and make arrangements for transport and all of that. But I think we'll hear shortly from the mayor of New York, the police commissioner, the fire commissioner, about the quick response time. As soon as word came that there was a helicopter in the Hudson, they were on it immediately, boats in the water, divers in the water. And they've done this before. In 2018, there was a crash of a tourist helicopter that killed a number of tourists. I think they were from Italy, if memory serves. But back then, Eva, there were calls to regulate the amount of traffic flying above the Hudson River at any given time. Not sure that ever really went anywhere. There are plenty of helicopters. We see them all the time here. But sadly, the police and the fire departments here have had some practice.
And John, Aaron mentioned that barge, that salvage barge that we can see out there in the water as they pull the wreckage of that helicopter out. What are they going to be looking for? What are they going to be looking at as they try to figure out what happened here?
Well, right now, this is in a recovery mode now that the people have been accounted for and unfortunately dead. Now it becomes getting the wreckage, every piece of wreckage possible, off in a safe place, getting it out of the water. That's probably going to take divers because some things I'm sure have sunk to the bottom. The helicopter itself is upside down and still floating. They should be able to latch onto that, hold it in position until they can get a crane. But right now it's getting as much detailed much wreckage, as I say, as possible for the NTSB to go over, because it can be something as small as just one screw or one bolt that leads to the explanation, and they want to get everything they can.
John Nance, Aaron Koturski, thank you both so much for your reporting. Coming up, U.S. stocks closed sharply lower today amid Wall Street whiplash over President Trump's tariff policy reversal. More details straight ahead.
the news never stops.
From Tampa, we are here tonight as Hurricane Milton has just made landfall.
The surge just keeps coming up.
Right on the border between Ukraine and Russia.
We're in artillery position about 2 miles away from Gaza.
And ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
We're not far from where this rally took place, so just stick with us here.
Traveling with the president to the U.S.-Mexico border.
Here in London today,
off the coast of Gaza.
Downtown Tel Aviv, rockets or missiles coming in.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii. Some areas are still smoldering.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines,
the ruins of Rafah.
From the FBI.
Reporting from Capitol Hill.
In western Portugal, outside of Mexico City.
In Iceland. Let's go.
Here in France.
The eclipse across America.
Just stunning.
Unbelievable.
Oh. Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there. You're streaming.
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere because the news never stops.
Huddle up, Team GMA! We're right here. Oh, sorry. We're right I got here. excited.
GMA wants to know who's the best coach in your community, in your child's life, who's made such a huge difference, because we're on the lookout for.
Are you ready to find the best coaches across America?
GMA wants to know about the impact of a dedicated coach in your town, so scan this code, nominate your favorite coach right now.
Let's honor the best coaches in America.
Thank you, Coach.
There's so much going on right now, Dan. Let's get it.
Let's go.
ESPN on Hulu plus Live TV has a ton of college basketball.
Wait, what?
With every game of the women's tournament. And ESPN on Hulu plus Live TV has the NFL Draft, baseball opening day, and golf. Don't forget Pro Hoops 2, including the playoffs and so much more. So much more. That's a lot.
You're telling me.
And it's all on ESPN on Hulu plus Live TV.
Stocks taking another nosedive one day after President Trump's pause on some tariffs triggered that historic market rally. Major stock indexes plummeting as investors failed to shake off fears over the president increasing tariffs against China to a whopping 145%. The anxiety even overshadowing positive new inflation numbers. Still, the president brushing off concerns of Chinese retaliation when pressed by our White House correspondent, Karen Travers.
China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?